In a stunning and historic decision that has sent shockwaves through Washington and beyond, the Supreme Court has officially struck down former President Trump's signature tariffs. This ruling, delivered after months of intense legal debate and public speculation, marks a pivotal moment in the ongoing battle over presidential authority and the future of American trade policy. The justices declared the tariffs to be an unconstitutional overreach of executive power, arguing that the president had exceeded the limits set by Congress when imposing sweeping trade barriers on foreign goods. The decision was not unanimous, but the majority opinion emphasized the importance of checks and balances, reaffirming that no president, regardless of political party, is above the law or the Constitution. The ruling effectively dismantles a cornerstone of the Trump administration's America First agenda, which had sought to protect American industries by imposing steep tariffs on imports from China, Europe, and other trading partners. Now, with the legal foundation for these tariffs erased overnight, U.S. trade policy has been thrown into chaos, leaving businesses, investors, and foreign governments scrambling to adjust to a rapidly changing landscape. Billions of dollars in potential refunds are now on the table for American companies and consumers who paid these tariffs over the past several years. The sudden reversal has left the legal and financial status of years' worth of tariff payments in limbo, raising urgent questions about how and when these funds might be returned, and who will ultimately bear the cost. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill, business leaders across the country, and global markets are all scrambling to understand the full scope of the fallout. Some are calling for immediate legislative action to clarify trade policy, while others warn of economic uncertainty and potential retaliation from America's trading partners. By siding decisively with Congress's constitutional authority over trade, the Supreme Court has redrawn the boundaries of presidential power. This landmark decision reasserts the role of the legislative branch in setting the nation's economic agenda and signals a new era of judicial scrutiny over executive actions. Importantly, this case isn't just about President Trump or his policies. It sets a precedent that will affect every future president and the fundamental rules that govern American trade. The decision will shape how the United States negotiates with the world, how industries compete, and how ordinary Americans feel the impact of global commerce. The Supreme Court's decision now sets up a monumental clash over what to do with the billions already collected. Legal experts predict a wave of lawsuits as companies seek refunds, while policymakers debate how to fill the sudden budget gap and prevent economic disruption. The Supreme Court has spoken, but the practical and political battles are just beginning. As the nation grapples with the consequences, all eyes are on Congress, the White House, and the courts to see how this unprecedented ruling will reshape the future of American trade and presidential power. The heart of the case: did President Trump have the legal right to impose massive tariffs without Congress? The Trump administration cited emergency powers under the IEEPA, but importers argued this was a constitutional overreach. The Supreme Court was asked, does economic competition justify bypassing Congress to enact sweeping tariffs? The justices decided it does not, reaffirming that the power to tax and regulate trade belongs to Congress, not the president. This ruling draws a clear line. Presidential power has limits, especially when it comes to the nation's economic policy. As the case unfolded, legal experts across the country saw the writing on the wall. From law school classrooms to national newsrooms, seasoned analysts and professors began to dissect the arguments, highlighting the unprecedented nature of the administration's approach. Many pointed out that the legal landscape was shifting and the stakes were high, not just for the current administration, but for the very balance of power in American government. Inside the Supreme Court, justices grilled the government's case with pointed questions. Their inquiries cut to the heart of the matter, probing whether the executive branch was overstepping its constitutional boundaries. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as justices pressed administration lawyers to justify their interpretation of emergency powers. The court's skepticism was clear. At issue was whether the president could invoke emergency powers to create new tax policy, a responsibility traditionally and explicitly reserved for Congress. Legal documents and historical precedents were scrutinized as the justices weighed the potential consequences of allowing such a broad interpretation of executive authority. Outside the courtroom, prediction markets and legal analysts overwhelmingly expected the tariffs to fall. Financial analysts tracked the odds in real time, while legal commentators debated the likely outcome on television and online forums. The consensus was that the administration's legal footing was weak, and that the Supreme Court would likely rein in the president's power. The administration, however, argued forcefully for flexibility in a fast-moving world. They insisted that the president needed the ability to act swiftly in response to global economic threats, and that existing laws gave the executive branch the necessary authority. Their attorneys painted a picture of a world where delay could mean disaster, and where decisive action was essential to protect American interests. But the justices were not convinced. Ultimately, the Supreme Court ruled that convenience and speed, no matter how compelling, cannot override the Constitution's separation of powers. The majority opinion emphasized that the framers of the Constitution deliberately placed the power to tax and regulate trade in the hands of Congress, not the president. The verdict was clear and unequivocal. Congress, not the president, controls the nation's purse and trade policy. This reaffirmed a fundamental principle of American democracy, that no single branch of government can unilaterally reshape the nation's economic landscape. This decision sends a strong message about the limits of executive power. It serves as a reminder that the Constitution's checks and balances are designed to prevent any one branch from accumulating too much authority, even in times of crisis or uncertainty. In the end, the legal consensus was unmistakable. Trump's tariff authority was on shaky ground from the start. Legal scholars, analysts, and commentators agreed that the Supreme Court's decision would have lasting implications, shaping the boundaries of executive power for years to come. The Supreme Court's ruling instantly voids the tariffs, forcing a major reset in U.S. trade policy. Businesses face relief and uncertainty as they adapt to a new landscape. For the presidency, it's a sharp check on executive power. Future presidents will have to work with Congress on trade. Congress now holds the spotlight. Will lawmakers craft a new, stable trade policy or fall into gridlock? The government faces a daunting logistical challenge. Does it owe billions in refunds to importers? The legal basis for collecting those tariffs is gone, raising urgent questions about the federal budget. The next chapter will test both Congress and the administration's ability to manage the fallout. The biggest question now, will the government refund the billions collected under the unlawful tariffs? Legal principles say yes, money collected under an illegal tax should be returned, but officials warn that processing years of transactions for thousands of companies could overwhelm the system. Some argue the economic disruption of refunds could be worse than the original harm. Importers insist it's a matter of fairness. The government took their money illegally and must pay it back. The debate pits fiscal practicality against the rule of law. The outcome will shape not just government finances, but public trust in the system. Washington is bracing for a fierce battle over refunds. For American businesses, the Supreme Court's decision is vindication, but now they want their money back. Importers argue the refund process should be simple. Customs records track every payment. They compare it to tax refunds. If the IRS can do it, so can Customs. Many have kept meticulous records ready to file claims. For them, this isn't just about money, it's about justice and correcting a wrong. They dismiss warnings of chaos as excuses to avoid repayment. The business community's message is clear. The government imposed an illegal tax, and now it must return the funds. They demand a straightforward, efficient process. The time for excuses, they say, is over. Customs brokers and trade attorneys warn that refunds could be a logistical nightmare. Millions of import entries, shifting tariff codes, and years of paperwork could overwhelm Customs and Border Protection. Disputes over which tariffs are voided and who gets the money could bog down the process for years. There's also the question of who truly bore the cost: importers, retailers, or consumers. Small businesses fear they'll be left behind while big corporations with legal teams get paid first. The risk: an unequal outcome where the well-connected benefit most. Even with a legal victory, the path to refunds could be long and treacherous. The chaos scenario is real and could test the system's limits. Former President Trump remains defiant, calling the Supreme Court's decision a devastating blow and a gift to America's rivals. He argues the ruling weakens the presidency and leaves the U.S. vulnerable on the world stage. Trump frames the tariffs as essential for protecting American jobs and forcing fairer trade deals. He insists the executive branch needs agility to respond to global threats, not congressional gridlock. For Trump, this is about more than tariffs. It's about defending the power of the presidency. He portrays the ruling as a setback for his populist movement and a win for the globalist establishment. The legal fight is over, but the political battle is just beginning. The Supreme Court's decision is a landmark that will reshape American government for years to come. This is not just another legal ruling, it's a moment that will be remembered as a pivotal shift in the balance of power between the branches of government. The weight of this decision will be felt far beyond the marble steps of the court, rippling through the halls of Congress, the Oval Office, and even the daily lives of American citizens and businesses. By striking down the tariffs, the court has sent a clear message. Congress, not the president, holds the ultimate authority over trade and taxes. This ruling reaffirms the constitutional principle that no single branch can act unilaterally on such critical issues. It's a reminder that the system of checks and balances is not just a theory, but a living, breathing safeguard for American democracy. Future presidents will now be required to work closely with Congress when shaping major economic policies. The days of sweeping executive actions on trade without legislative approval are over. This means that any significant changes to tariffs, taxes, or trade agreements will demand negotiation, compromise, and transparency. The president's power to act alone has been checked, ensuring that the voices of the people, through their elected representatives, are heard in every major economic decision. The immediate fallout is dramatic. Tariffs that once shaped the flow of goods and the fate of industries are now gone. Businesses across the country are reacting, some with relief, others with uncertainty. The fight over billions of dollars in potential refunds has already begun, setting off a wave of legal battles and financial recalculations. For many companies, this ruling could mean a lifeline. For others, it introduces new challenges and questions about the future. But the long-term impact goes even deeper. This decision sets a powerful new precedent for the separation of powers, fundamentally shifting how America conducts business with the world. International partners are watching closely, as the United States signals a renewed commitment to the rule of law and legislative oversight in trade matters. The way America negotiates, competes, and collaborates on the global stage will never be quite the same. Now, lawmakers face the daunting challenge of crafting a coherent, forward-looking trade policy. They must balance the interests of workers, businesses, and consumers, all while navigating a rapidly changing global economy. Committees will hold hearings, experts will testify, and every detail will be scrutinized. The responsibility for America's economic future now rests squarely on the shoulders of Congress. This decision closes a controversial chapter in American governance, but it also opens a new one filled with legal and political uncertainty. Lawsuits, debates, and legislative battles are sure to follow, as all sides grapple with the implications of this historic shift. The nation will watch as new precedents are set and old assumptions are challenged. The echoes of this ruling will shape the presidency, Congress, and the economy for generations. It will influence how future leaders govern, how laws are written, and how America's place in the world is defined. The questions raised today will guide debates for years, as the country continues to wrestle with the balance of power and the meaning of democracy. This is a true turning point in American history, one that will be studied in classrooms, debated in courtrooms, and analyzed in newsrooms for decades to come. The story of this ruling is just beginning, and its impact will be felt by every American, now and in the future.